Bud Light got even more bad news today as they are finally dethroned as America's top-selling beer. As you can see in this article from CNN Business, it says Bud Light loses its title as America's top-selling beer, and they lost that title to Modelo. And I know that everybody's going to jump to the comments and say that Anheuser Busch also owns Modelo. It's kind of not the point, though. Yes, we want to take as much money as possible away from Anheuser Busch as a whole, but as well as ruin the Bud Light brand. In my opinion, this isn't just really about ruining the Bud Light brand or ruining the Anheuser Busch brand. I mean, it is kind of ruining them. It's about ruining them, but not about taking as much money away from them as possible. You have to look at the bigger picture here. The bigger picture is we're setting an example to all of the other brands, all of the other corporations out there, that if you do things similar to what Bud Light did, then similar things could happen to you. You could face similar punishment. Your brand could also be ruined. So the fact that Modelo is also owned by Anheuser Busch, yeah, it's not ideal. It's definitely not ideal. I would rather all of the Anheuser Busch beers be, ruined, have their brands ruined, lose all of their top spots. But it's not the end of the world that Modelo is also owned by Anheuser Busch, because like I said, you have to look at the bigger picture here. This is about setting an example more than it is about bankrupting Anheuser Busch. Hopefully that's a byproduct. Hopefully we can really cause some real damage, and I think that we have, by the way, to Anheuser Busch. But like I said, it's not the end of the world that Modelo has taken the spot of Bud Light as America's top-selling beer. And also, you can see right here, it says the Mexican lager brewed near Mexico City by Constellation Brands became the top-selling beer in May, overthrowing Bud Light from the top spot it has held for more than 2 decades. So Anheuser Busch only owns Modelo in the United States. Outside of the United States, it's owned and distributed by Constellation. So it's not only owned by Anheuser Busch. So to say that they're breaking even here, it's very disingenuous. They're definitely losing a ton of money, even if 15% of Bud Light's lost sales go to the other Anheuser Busch brands, which isn't happening, by the way. That's definitely a very generous number for Anheuser Busch. Even if 15% go to other Anheuser Busch owned beer brands, they're still losing 10 to 12% of sales. And like I said, that's a very, very generous number to say that 15% are going to go to other Anheuser Busch brands. It's just not happening. I think a lot of them are going to Coors and Miller, and even if all of them were going to Modelo, Anheuser Busch only owns and distributes Modelo in the United States, as far as I'm aware. On everything that I could find, everything that everybody's telling me, and this article right here even says from CNN that it's only owned by Anheuser Busch in the United States. So we also have this article from Fortune. It says Bud Light dethroned as America's favorite beer despite support from country music legend Garth Brooks. So even though Garth Brooks is selling Bud Light in his new bar, they still lost their top spot. Who would have thought that Garth Brooks couldn't even save Bud Light? It's really sad. I'm definitely not paying for this subscription. I just thought that the headline was pretty funny. Despite country music legend Garth Brooks supporting Bud Light and selling Bud Light in his new bar, and yesterday he kind of had a little bit of a meltdown saying, if you don't support Bud Light, then you're an asshole, and other things like that. If you don't support his bar because he sells Bud Light, then you're an asshole. Stuff like that. You can tell that a major meltdown is coming for Garth Brooks. He's probably going to lash out very soon and embarrass himself, most likely. But it's funny how they're saying, despite support from country music legend Garth Brooks, Bud Light still lost their top spot. I just thought that was pretty funny. And then we have this article here from Newsweek. It says Bud Light sales show no sign of rebounding after boycott, new data reveals. A lot of people were saying after last week's numbers, where the numbers dropped off a bit, the boycott numbers dropped off a bit. I think it was, back up. The sales were back up around 2 to 3% from the week prior to that, but then they dropped right back down this week to 24.9%, I believe it was, or 24.4%, somewhere around there. So right around the peak of the boycott. So I think it's probably going to hover around here for a while. I think we should definitely keep our foot on the gas and keep trying to raise that number up, because that number is, representative of the sales that they have lost. So they have lost close to 25% of their sales. And a lot of people are saying that those numbers are actually padded, that those numbers are actually a lot worse on the back end of things. But the numbers that they're purporting, the numbers that they're putting out there, they're trying to make it seem a lot better for Anheuser Busch and for Bud Light than it actually is. So apparently a lot of the experts are out there saying that it's a lot worse than 24.4%. And I have to agree with them. Just from the outside looking in, just from the eye test, I think that the brand damage that has been done to Bud Light is a whole lot worse than the current sales numbers that are down 25%. That's saying a lot, because 25%, losing 25% of your sales is no joke. Like, that's a lot of money. And anybody that tries to cope and says it's not, ask them for 25% of their income. I guarantee you they're not giving it to you. Like, that's a lot. 25% is a whole lot of money. And I still think that the brand damage that has been done, the permanent brand damage that has been done to Bud Light and all of the Anheuser-Busch brands, but most importantly and definitely the most devastatingly, the Bud Light brand specifically, it's going to last forever. Like, you're not going to ever get away from this. Bud Light has been permanently damaged. And you know, people don't want to be seen with Bud Light. People don't want to be seen drinking Bud Light, carrying Bud Light cases, buying Bud Light in grocery stores. It just the social pressure is just so powerful that people just refuse to be seen around Bud Light, being associated with Bud Light. And that's much more powerful than any sort of morals and principles that people have out there. That social pressure is really, really working. And like I said, 25% down in sales is a whole lot. But the brand damage that has been done, the permanent brand damage that has been done to Bud Light is a whole lot worse. And they will never recover from this. As this article from Newsweek says, Bud Light sales show no sign of rebounding. I don't think they're going to show signs of rebounding for a really long time, if ever. Let me know what you guys thinking about the Bud Light boycott going forward and Bud Light finally losing its top spot as America's top selling beer. Let me know what you think about the entire situation.